Hello everyone, my name is Alexandra and I create tutorial videos for Hubble and Webb images to download and process. So that's mostly what I've been focusing on, but I have been curious about branching into data from other missions for NASA. And one thing I came across when I first began to look into this was the Mars rovers. And figuring out how to work with that data was a lot different than working with data from a space telescope. The files are different, the archives are different, and it was quite a learning experience. One data archive that I have found that is relatively easy to use that has rover data is the Analyst Notebook. Now you can do a quick Google search for this, and I will definitely be linking this in the video description as well. But this notebook houses the various Mars rovers as well as some data on the moon. Now, one thing to know about this notebook is that if you would like, you can create an account. So when I go to click on the Perseverance notebook, I can sign in. If you do not want to have an account, you can click Anonymous up here, but I like to have an account. So it takes a second to log in, and then this is what the notebook looks like. Now, this notebook does have a lot of description on how to use it and how to download data and whatnot. Immediately when you log in, it has this Getting Started page, and there are a lot of resources on this page that you can use for learning how to navigate. I do not use this notebook for much more than browsing, but you can do a lot of stuff with it. You can see here the list of everything that this notebook can do. Whether you're looking for a mission, a specific sol, you just want to search for things, look at maps, and so on. I mostly just use the browse feature because I just like to browse for the data and kind of see what's available versus looking for very specific things. So feel free to investigate that on your own. I'm sure there's so many amazing things that this notebook can do. The way that I like to search for things is by using the search function. You can also use sol, so I will quickly go over that. This notebook does not contain the most immediate data available from the rovers. Data is uploaded in batches, so if you're looking for something that, say, NASA just released a really recent image and you're like, that's really cool, I want to download that and work with it, it's not going to be in the notebook. You're going to have to wait. So it looks like they're up to about sol 539 as of this video. So you can search by sol in this function. So if you wanted a certain day, like say day 100, just hit enter and it will pull up that specific day. You can hit the plus sign to expand the data products and see what's available. And it will show you everything here. I like to use the search function and I use the data tab. So this now allows me to choose per instrument, per day. You can filter it any way you want. I usually just search by day. So the way I find images is just by looking them up either from a NASA article or from the Raw Images website. So NASA does post all of the images, including the most recent ones, on their website at mars.nasa.gov, and you can Google raw images. This will be linked in the video description as well. The only problem with these images is that you can only download them as a JPEG image, which is perfectly fine, but as far as Mars images go, I just like to try and get to the source. So while a JPEG is perfectly fine if I wanted to work with that, I prefer to download it from the Analyst Notebook. Otherwise, you could click on an image here and just click download for something you want to work with. If I see a specific NASA article with a really cool image and it usually specifies the sol that it was taken from, I will specifically search for that date. Otherwise, I just kind of browse and see what's available. It's going to have some stuff that is not in the Analyst Notebook. So sometimes you have to go way back into different pages to find data that will be in the Analyst Notebook. For example, since it Looks like for now it goes up to about Sol 539. So if I were to type in, say, 600, it's not going to work. I know that for here, I can only look up to day 539. And by clicking on an image, it tells me right in the top what sol this is, and that's how I know what data I can actually download currently. Sometimes I'll just browse here to find cool images and then look them up in the Analyst Notebook. But in this case, I'm going to use an example from a NASA article that I read that I thought was really cool. It had a really cool image of Perseverance from Sol 198. So I had this article in my email that I got from a NASA newsletter, and I thought, wow, that is a really cool selfie of Perseverance. I want to download that data and work with it myself. And it said that it was taken on the 198th Martian day. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to look up day 198 in the Analyst Notebook. So I go to my search function and I choose the data tab, and here are all the instruments. Specifically for day 198, it pulls up everything. Now, I had to look up what camera Perseverance actually takes its selfies with, and it's called the Watson camera. And the Watson camera is on the Sherlock arm. So this instrument is the Sherlock. So if I knew exactly what instrument that I wanted to look for, I can deselect everything and only look at the data from the Sherlock instrument. So when I select the Sherlock instrument, it is going to pull up all of the photos that that instrument took that day. And so it looks like here you can see a horizon, you can see part of the rover. That's probably the selfie image. And it turns out to be a group of photos. So this entire group can actually be merged to create the composite image. So while this image here in the article might look like one single image, in the notebook you can see it was actually taken a bunch of different images and created a single image. For now, I just want to work with the image of the rover masthead. So I'm going to choose this image. It's going to give me essentially a preview of what this image looks like. And then I can download different file types. So if you want a different view, you can select down here other views. In the image viewer, it will actually show you a much larger image of what this looks like. So once I'm ready to download, I will go to type. And there are different types that can be downloaded for these images. And they're all labeled fairly well and can be a bit confusing to figure out what to download. So when I originally worked with these images, I decided to download the RAD image, but if you'll notice there is an N next to the image, and down here, an N stands for nominal, full frame, subframe, downsample. It seems to be a better image. T right below it is a thumbnail, so maybe that's a bit smaller and I don't want to download it. There's a bunch of different types, and I've just decided to use the 15-bit integer one. I'm sure there's reasons for using the others, but I'm still very new to the Analyst Notebook and do not know how to work with that data. So once I select the image that I want to download, I go to the red download button. If you want to do multiple images, you can add them to your cart, but since I'm just downloading one, I'm just going to directly download it. So when we work with these images, we don't just need the data file itself, we need what is called a label file with it. So you can also download the quick look images if you want to just see what they look like. You can see that some of them have a stretch applied to them, but I know that I want the data product file as well as the label file. So these images are going to now download, and they're going to download as a .img and a .xml file. Now, I'm not entirely sure what an IMG file extension is. Highly encourage you to Google it because it's a bit too hard for me to explain, but it is the file extension for this type of data. So we have to convert them, and someone has created a converting software to do this. However, if you have never worked with the command line, it can definitely be a bit confusing. when I was learning how to work with this, it was an entirely new thing for me to learn. So I will also link this in the video description. It is called IMG to ping. So this download allows you to essentially convert these IMG files to a ping file. So first you'll want to download it. Simply click the download button here. So when downloading it, it automatically goes into my downloads folder and it looks like this when it pulls up. I believe my computer automatically extracted it, but if you have a zip file, go ahead and extract it. And you have to move it to a folder that you want to constantly access. So you could create something in, say, your documents folder or wherever. I actually moved it straight onto my C drive, straight into my users folder. You can create any type of folder. I just like to use the C drive because that is easiest for me to be able to navigate using the command line because I'm still very new to the command line. If you know how to navigate it, save it wherever you want. But I saved it to users under my user profile, and you want to make sure to copy everything that downloaded because this software cannot just work with Mars rover data, but it can also work with Viking data, Mariner data, kind of any NASA data. I have not played around with it too much yet because I'm very new to all of the planetary data. But once it's in this folder, you don't have to do anything. Now it is all up to the command line. This will be shown with the Windows laptop. This is the Windows command line. You can just type in the search CMD. It will pull up the command prompt. The first thing I'm going to type is IMG to ping. That's all you have to do. And because I saved it in that user folder, you can see it just automatically is already on there for the command line. Before I can actually convert the image, I need to know what the file name itself is called. So I'm going to go back to my file system, go to my downloads where I originally downloaded the first two images, the actual image itself and the label file, and I'm going to move that into my user file. So if you know how to navigate the command line and like move files around, go for it. Like I said, I'm a noob, still learning, and I do it the long way by actually moving them. But in the command line, you can actually move around files and do all that stuff. So I've moved it into my user file. These are the two images. And now I'm going to type them into my command line. If there is a way to copy directly into the command line, please tell me, because I think you have to type everything out, but who knows. So I usually hit space once I type IMG to ping, and now I'm going to type the file name. If you mess it up, it will not work. Now the cool part is, even though you need the label for the software to be able to work, you only have to type the file name. Usually the label and the file name are exactly the same anyway, but you just type the file name .img and hit enter. And all those lines tell me it's successfully extracted, and now you will actually see it pull up in your file folder with the same name, just .png. So now you can actually work with the data. But look at this, when I pull it up, it is incredibly dark and you can barely see Perseverance's face right there. So now the fun part. We pull up Photoshop or your equivalent image processing software that you like to use. Now once I pull up Photoshop, I'm going to open my file. You just have to remember where you saved it. So first I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to rotate this image so I can actually see Perseverance, and I'm going to immediately brighten it. So I'm just going to do this with a curve adjustment, It's going to be a bit different to work with than space telescope data because the curves will look a lot different. So just going to do levels adjustment next. Doesn't matter if you work with curve or levels, it's kind of the same thing. So I'm just trying to brighten the image. It looks a lot better. There's a black strip at the top, so I'm actually going to crop it just a little bit. Get rid of that black strip. And there you have it, your Perseverance selfie. It's really quite cool. And now I can play with it and do anything I want. So I've brightened the image, maybe do a little bit of color adjustment with a selective color layer. And then just kind of mess around with the levels, see how it would look. Maybe add a little bit of red into the image because we know that Mars is red. If you're going for more scientific accuracy, you probably don't want to play around with the colors too much, but I like to remove more of the flat tan color and kind of give it some color. But it's probably not going to be the most scientifically accurate because I don't actually know what the colors look like on Mars, other than not having as much blue as Earth would. I am happy with this color correction. It's actually kind of cool. You can see the different colors on Perseverance itself. And I believe Mars does have grayish colored rocks, so who knows. But I like this color correction. Going to create another layer and just go into the camera raw filter and just adjust some things like the contrast and whatnot. So I brightened up the image a little bit more, gave it a little contrast, and I like the final result. So that is how you can create an image from Mars rover data. If you have any questions or want to leave tips on how to improve this process, as I am very new to planetary science data and find it very different to work with than space telescopes, please do so. Thank you so much for watching, and I cannot wait to see what you guys create.